All right, guys, the bike got heated. What are you doing, bro? Everybody meet Ronaldo, aka Schmiegi. You're gonna see this character in a lot of our videos. If you've already seen him in a couple, you pig! This guy's wearing sunglasses, and it's inside.
It's sunny. The doors are open. There's sun coming through.
Yeah, there's Ronaldo. You've seen enough. Be gone.
All right.
Beat it.
Fade it.
We've got dyno vids to shoot.
I'm not a scumbag.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Champion Cycle. Today we are going to be doing dyno tuning on a fuel injected motorcycle. The same kind of concept is going to apply to most every fuel injected bike of the straight 4 style engine. Yeah, I'm going to get into the how to, what to, kind of the common sense things, you know, a lot of things that are common knowledge or that are the basics to a dyno tuner like myself or anybody mechanically inclined aren't as common knowledge or as basic to a guy like yourselves maybe, or some other guy at home, or just guys that don't tend to know as much. Like, there tends to be a black art, it's like a black magic philosophy going on within dyno tuning. People in general think, you know, how does this work? What all are they doing? What are they actually doing? You know, a guy might watch a guy tuning and see him flip flap buttons, and who knows what the guy's actually doing. Like, is he actually tuning your bike right? Is he not tuning your bike right? You know, what are all these squiggles and squaggles all over the line on the screen? What are these lines? What, you know, there's a lot more to dyno tuning than you guys may think. A lot of tuners, depending on how skilled they are, may make it look easy. I'm one of those guys. However, I'm going to kind of break it down to the point where anybody and everybody will be able to understand the basics of tuning. This way, if you do go to get your bike tuned in whatever country you're based out of, or to whomever you go, you'll know more than that guy will definitely expect you to know. We get lots of questions, lots of guys asking us about making some dyno videos. A lot of guys come into our personal shop and they just have so many questions that to me are basic, but I understand to a lot of guys it's not basic. So yeah, we're gonna give you guys the what to and how to, and we'll get her at her and see what this thing's doing. Today we got this 2012 Gixxer 750. We're gonna go ahead and we've already connected the cables just to save some time here for the video, but go ahead and take the seat off on the side panel. Now this is a bike that just got converted into a track bike. It's still under construction. As you can see, there's no decals. So far, all we've done is mount the bodywork and give it a quick paint job and some brake lines, you know, a couple little goodies, safety wire, the grips, you know, some basic stuff. So I've gone ahead and connected my cables to my power commander. What I do is I run an auxiliary laptop. So my laptop will only control my power commander settings, my actual fuel settings, and then I have my other cable, which, as you can see right here, this cable runs right to my dyno, and that's picking up my RPM signal, my TPS, all that good stuff, feeding it right into my dyno. A lot of tuners might not have this type of equipment. Some do, some don't. The basics are the same. How you gather your information may change, but the concept's the same. So, I mean, we tend to have one of the more advanced dynos in our city. So, you know, we have every option that's available with this dyno, minus the electronic floor plate for the wheel, because, I mean, Jesus, who's that lazy? We're gonna get at it and see what she does. Here we go. We're gonna get the tuning. So what we're gonna do first is we're gonna start this bad boy up. We're gonna let it heat up to operating temperature. Obviously we don't want to run the motorcycle cold or hot, so we're gonna let it idle and just let it warm up. As you can see, it's gonna idle. We're gonna let it idle for about 5-10 minutes. It's about 70 degrees or so. We're not gonna film the whole time of it idling for you guys. It's a waste of time. Yeah, let this bad boy heat up and we'll see what we're doing. So now I've warmed the bike up. She's already warmed up. I'm gonna go ahead and do a base pull. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a full throttle pull. That's gonna give us our base numbers, so we know where this bike started from. This way we can show people this is what you got for your money. This is to show them how well what we did worked. So we're gonna do one full pull, full throttle. So we went ahead and did our base pull. That's our full throttle base pull. You're gonna be able to see, I'm just bolding out the lines for you here. You can see here, it started out with 127 horsepower and the torque is 51 foot-pounds. We're gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna change my setting at the bottom here because as you can see I have it set on time. So for tuning, I'm gonna want it set on engine RPM. You can see that I'm dyno tuning in SAE smoothing 5. Now, this is the most key dyno tuning trick and scum bleepery you'll ever see that a lot of little scoundrels do. And what they'll do is they'll do dyno tuning and they'll manufacture a muffler and they'll give you guys, oh, it picks up this amount of horsepower. It picks up 11 horsepower, buy this pipe. You'll make 10 horsepower if you buy this product. Nonsense like that. And what they're doing is they're changing the dyno numbers. So what I'm telling you guys right now is kind of a little trick of the trade that a lot of people don't talk about. Now, we pride ourselves in not doing that. There's a couple local shops that do that, for example. So like we'll have guys come to us and say, well, my R1 makes 185 horsepower to the wheel. And then we'll look and just giggle and we'll be like, no, that's not what it makes to the wheel. And then I'll be like, show me your dyno graph. And if they have the dyno graph, they'll show it to me. And sure enough, it'll have the wrong setting. And they do it to change the numbers. So if you can see, this bike has 127 horsepower and 51 foot-pounds of torque. Sounds about average for a Gixxer 750 that has yet to be tuned, because it'll sit up around the 135-ish roughly. So now if I go into my settings here, you're gonna see, so we're gonna go ahead, guys, and check the smoothing. If you remember, 127 horsepower, 51 foot-pounds of torque. I'm gonna change my smoothing to 4. All of a sudden, it's changed. If you can see, we're gonna change it all the way to 0, which is the lowest option, which is realistically the highest for numbers. All of a sudden, it has 68 foot-pounds of torque and 128 horsepower. But if I go back to the proper correction factor, 51 torque and 127 horsepower. So you can see the numbers change. Now that's with me only changing the smoothing factor. I haven't even touched the correction factor. If I change the correction factor to uncorrected, to DIN, JIS, STD, any of the other types, these numbers will, like, you'll get an extra 5 horsepower, 6, 7. Honestly, guys, it's a true scam. So when you're getting a dyno tune, make sure that that dyno is in SAE smoothing 5. No matter where you are in the world, that's what you want.
Oh, hold on. Did you say you had STDs? STD?
You guys see what I gotta deal with here? Hold on. Let me note something else. First of all, just so you know, this isn't scripted. I can't even script this nonsense. This guy's wearing sunglasses and it's inside.
It's sunny.
You see how his face just went red? You can't fake that.
The doors are open. There's sun coming through. See you later.
This guy's trying to go back to the correction factor and pulling out STD. Can you imagine? Out of this whole speech, that's what he took home. STD. This is what I gotta deal with, guys. This is what I gotta deal with. Let's carry on. Then again, there's other things that play into effect with dyno tuning. If you're having your bike tuned at a facility that uses a Bzaz dyno, for example, a Bzaz dyno tunes with ram air. So it's feeding ram air forced induction into the bike to give you horsepower number at the wheel, including the ram air effect. Realistically, this is kind of frowned upon in the world of tuners, but Bzaz had to create some kind of different gimmick to try and sell their dynos, because everybody in the world's pretty much using a dynojet if they got any common sense. You know, their numbers will always look 20 horsepower higher or what have you, just because they're supposedly tabulating what the actual horsepower will be, including the ram air, which that has yet to be proven other than by Bzaz, which I know I don't need to say much about it. You guys are well aware about Bzaz. Dynojet is pretty much the most accurate. If you go to any shop with a Dynojet 250i, which is their latest model, you'll pretty much get more or less the same numbers. If you go to a shop that has an old dynojet, like a Model 200, even some guys are kicking a Model 150 still, those dynos will throw higher numbers and stuff like that. Those old school dynos have to be calibrated. Those Land and Sea dynos and all these Dyno Pack and all this other mumbo jumbo dynos, they have to be calibrated and this and that and yada yada. The beauty of the 250i is it's constantly calibrated. It's online, hooked up, download to dynojet. This thing is top notch. There's no fiddle faddling. We don't got to do nothing. It's always giving us accurate numbers. We've put 3 brand new BMW S1000s out of the crate here a little while ago, and all 3 of them gave the exact same horsepower, you know, off by the 0.0%, you know, that's just it happens based on a little gust of wind, but they were all the same horsepower number, so you know the dyno is dead accurate. So now that we've got our base number, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull up a second graph, and on my second graph it's going to be air fuel. So I've got my horsepower, I've got my torque, which realistically, as a tuner, we don't care about while we're tuning. More or less, we're looking at the air fuel. There's a misconception out there that a lot of guys will come in and they'll say, well, we want more power. We want the most power we can get. Well, I don't want you to squeeze too much power and risk hurting the motor. I want it to be safe. Well, realistically, all we're doing is we're tuning to achieve the perfect air-fuel ratio, i.e. the perfect fuel burn. We're doing that by achieving the perfect air-fuel ratio. We're not doing it by adding fuel where it shouldn't be and just guessing and, oh, this makes power, that makes power. That's not what we're doing. What we're doing is we're achieving the perfect air-fuel mixture for the engine to run perfectly and the bike to breathe accordingly. By doing that, achieving that perfect air-fuel, the horsepower numbers it gets are what it gets. Some guys will be like, well, I want to make a little bit more horsepower. Well, sure, you can lean the bike out and get a little bit more power. If it's a race bike, you might want to run it a little bit richer, and you could get a little bit more power when it's a little bit more richer, but at the same time, that's if you're on the throttle all the time. But there's a lot more to it. So for this bike, for example, we're going to run a pretty basic, perfect air fuel for the street, just an all-around. This bike actually belongs to a female who's just getting started on the track, so she's not crazy on racing and making big power. She just wants her bike to run and not give her any problems and last long and make good power and have good throttle response and have no flat spots and just be perfect, smooth throughout the entire track day experience that she intends to have. So as you can see from our first pull, our air fuel graph's out to lunch. She goes crazy lean, she goes crazy rich, she's everywhere. So pretty much what we're doing here is anything under the line is rich. Anything above the line is lean. The opposite of what you might think. You might be standing in the window here or in somebody's shop watching them dyno tuning. You'll be thinking, well, the chart goes up here, that must mean it's rich. No, it's the reverse. Up is lean, down is rich when it comes to the dyno. Meaning your burn ratio of 11 to 0, 12, 13, 14, 15, there's your numbers. So I have my dyno set, for example, for this particular bike, I have my target set at 13.5. 13.5 is optimal for a street bike. Now what I am gonna do, because I know it is a race bike, is at the 80 and 100% throttle percentages, I am gonna fatten it up. And I'm gonna let it run a little bit richer so that it can get a little bit more fuel when I know she's gonna need it, right? So there's our air fuel. You can see that it's out to lunch. When I'm done with this thing, it'll look pretty much almost straight. It'll never be dead straight like a ruler, which is another problem some tuners that are novice and just beginning are trying to do. They're trying to get it as straight like a ruler. The problem is, you can't get it straight as a ruler because this is a living, breathing engine. This bad boy is firing, combusting, burning fuel, exploding, little explosions inside of each cylinder. You can't expect every explosion to be identical. So, I mean, let's go ahead and get it tuned. So what I'm going to want to do right now is I'm going to start with, if you can see my screen here, my dynojet screen. We have our columns with our RPM and our throttle position. So I'm going to go ahead and you've got 2% throttle, 5%, 10, 15, and so forth, all the way to 100. I'm going to start by tuning my 2 and 5% columns. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do some runs, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold my throttle at 2%. And we're going to see what she's doing. So what I'm going to do, because this is a race bike, I'm not going to bother with 2% because 2 and 5 are almost identical. I'm pretty much going to do my 2 and 5% more or less the same. So I'm going to do the 5%, and then I'm going to go ahead and double check that the 2% was pretty much the same. So we're gonna go ahead and put our safety protection on. We're gonna go ahead and let the bike get as low as we can in RPM so I can touch every RPM range as much as I can. So as you can see, guys, I held it at 5%. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull away our first run, just so we can get a little bit more clarity here. And now we can see the air fuel graph. You can see pretty much where we started. We're going to ignore that right there because that was before I touched the throttle. That's just it jumping up and down. When my dyno records automatically when the wheel drum is spinning. So we're going to start here where I touched the throttle pretty much. You're going to see it touched a little bit rich there. So we know that 1500 RPM to 2000 RPM, the bike was a little bit rich. Now we already know that it was at 5% throttle. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna move over here, hopefully you guys can see this. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna grab the 2 and 5% throttle area in the RPM range I just disclosed to you guys. I'm gonna take away, this is where experience comes into effect. You've gotta look at the numbers and kind of have an idea as to how much fuel to pull away. So for me, for example, I'm gonna go ahead and pull away 3%. At 2, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull away an extra 2, just based on how severe the arch got. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep moving. This is pretty good, and you see right at 3000 RPM, it starts going lean all the way to 65. So what we're going to do is, we're going to highlight, I'm going to move over, hope you guys can see, from 3 to 65, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add 2% fuel. And then as you can see at 37, it got even richer. Same thing at 62. So what I'm going to do is 37 to 62, I'm going to add another 2. Then as you can see, by 4 to 55, 57 even we'll say, it was even richer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab 4 to 57, I'm going to add an extra 2. And now that pretty much covers my whole range. By the time we got here, we were doing 6, that's 4, that's 2. Right around here, it got ridiculously rich. That's 4,700 to 55. So for shits and giggles, excuse me, for poos and giggles, 47 to 55, I'm going to add an extra 3, just so we can see what it's going to do for us. So we'll go ahead and send that map to the commander, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to do another pull, and let's see what it did. Done a pull. Now you can see here we have our before and after. You can see our run 1, which is our blue line. You saw what it was, right? Now if you look at our red line, that's now. What we can see happens here is, see our air fuel on our red line, see it got nice and rich, still a little bit lean there. See how much richer it got? You see how close we are to our target compared to how lean it was? So what we're doing is working. Now the only thing you might notice if you're watching at home is, in the beginning, under 3,000, 3,200 RPM, it looks like it's crazy lean. I'm not gonna get caught up on that because I know that all that is because I let the RPM go so low, the bike was kind of chugging, if you saw it there on camera. That chugging is kind of sending a mixed signal. So I'm gonna do it again, and this time I'm not gonna let it chug, and you'll watch that'll be right wherever it really was. So this is again where it comes back to dyno knowledge. I know by looking at that, I know what the situation is, why it showed us that reading. When the beginning, when I was learning and when other people were learning, and nobody tends to do videos that I'm doing, so you tend to not get the bird's eye view and understanding as to what all is happening. I learned through experience that sometimes you get little hiccups and like the bike chugging, all of a sudden, boom, my line is wrong. So I would look at it and go, oh shoot, what I did doesn't make sense. Oh, maybe I did something wrong, but no, I know exactly what happened. So we're gonna ignore that until our next run, and we're gonna just make our changes here, and then we'll see where we're at. So we went ahead and made all our changes. Now, I didn't bother filming again and again and again and again, but as you can see what it says up here, run file 10. So one of the times was our first run, so it doesn't even count, but 9 times I went and made some changes. A little bit leaner, a little bit richer here and there, back, another run, back to the laptop, a little bit richer, a little bit leaner, another run, and back and forth and back and forth, 9 times. After my 9th time, as you can see, my air fuel, it's perfectly where you want it to be, right? This choppy area, if you look at this little dip, that's where I cracked the throttle and held it. It'll always chop there. You'll see on every graph. What a lot of tuners do, and what I might do even towards the end when you give the guy their dyno graph, you don't start recording there, you record just after the chop, just because people tend to ask questions that it's harder to explain to them. They might think you're trying to shyster them or what have you, but that's just the chop, so ignore that. But you look here, from where I started recording, it's perfectly where you want it to be. Perfect air fuel, make sure this bike's running great. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna apply that exact same technique of record up and down by reading the graph to air fuel, make another run, record, go ahead and implement my changes up and down. And what I'm going to do is my dynojet power commander, this bike's equipped with a power commander 5, it allows me to do 2% throttle, 5%, 10, 15, 20, and then at 20 it skips intervals to by 20% intervals instead of 5. So from the low area you go 5, 10, 15, 20, because they want to keep it very smooth in that area. You'll skip to 40%, 60%, 80%, 100%. Now that does not mean that you can't tune the, for example, 80 to 100, it seems to skip 90. Now that doesn't mean you can't tune 90. What they're doing is 90% throttle, the 80% column is touching 80 right to 89%. You get it? And then from the 90% and up is all 100 anyway. So you got some other tuners like, I won't mention their names, but starts with a B, that for copyright reasons made a tuning program, and they're like, well, we can tune, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, and 100. So people think, well, you can get more tunability. No. Straight up, they did that so they couldn't get sued by Dynojet for essentially copying their idea. So what we're doing is, you can still tune all those areas, you can't do it as you can see the numbers, but it is tuning, so that it is still happening. So we're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna continue. I'm gonna do 10%, 15, right up to 80 and 100. I'm gonna do my first pull at 100, and right after I'm done tuning right to 100%, I'll go ahead and I'll stop again and I'll fill you guys in on exactly what we're doing. Yeah, here we go. So I'm gonna keep going. We are gonna still record it, so you will get to see the goings on, but we're gonna speed it up because, I mean, who wants to sit there for an hour watching the bike go back and forth and watching my back tight? I'm gonna go ahead and keep going. If anything goofy kind of happens, I will stop and I will explain to you guys exactly what it is. So yeah, pitter patter, let's get at it. guys, so we're pretty much done. I've gone through all the RPM ranges, right at 100% throttle. As you can see, I went ahead and did my entire columns here. As you can see, all my columns are populated. I went ahead and added my insignia on the bottom, it says Champion Tuned. That's just what I write to show that the bike was tuned here. Obviously, we're proud of what we do here, so I want people to know, if they get a machine that says that in their Power Commander notes, then obviously it's been well tuned. But then again, a guy could have changed this pipe since it was tuned. Like, there's lots of little variables, but generally, if anything we tuned, you've got nothing to worry about. So what I did was I went ahead and did everything, and as I'm making changes, so as I finish the 5% column, what I do is I copy and paste my entire 5% column over to my 10%. Then I do the same and the same and the same once I'm complete. By doing this, it eliminates a lot of the time for me, because I know I'm doing such a good job making the line perfect that it's going to carry over with minor variations. So I went all the way ahead now. If you guys can see here, I wound up doing 26 runs total. So after 26 runs, as you can see by my air fuel, it's pretty much perfect. It's exactly where we want it to be. As you can see, I'm making the air fuel a little lower so you can see. So as you can see, my horsepower and torque curve are almost perfectly linear. This is essentially what you want to see. You don't want to see a horsepower curve with dips and cuts and grooves. So as you can see, mine's perfect. My air fuel is very linear. Everything is perfect. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to pull up our first run. So the red line is now our first run, and the blue line is our final run. At the end of my graph here, you can see there's some scribbles that go backwards and stuff. Pay no attention to that. That's because my dyno is recording whenever my drum is rotating. That's why it shows my down curve when I'm bringing the RPM back down. So just ignore, it ends where it ends up here. So when I print out my graph to give to my client, a lot of times I'll cut it off beneath that so they won't be curious as to why there's squiggles, and it doesn't mean anything. So as you can see by my before and after, before the bike had 127 horsepower. After tuning, it has 136. So it made 9 clean horsepower. The torque, before tuning it was 51. Post tuning, 56. So this bike wound up picking up 9 horsepower and 5 foot-pounds of torque. That's pretty basic numbers. Like we usually tell people, it's 10 to 15 horsepower, 5 to 8 foot-pounds of torque, depending on how bad the bike's running when it came in here. This bike wasn't running end of the world bad because it's just a slip-on stock air filter, still has the air valve connected, didn't have the ECU flash, nothing's been done to the timing, the secondary throttle body plates are still in there. None of the other little mods have been done to this thing. It's just a slip-on Power Commander, give her a tune, and I mean, that's pretty impressive numbers, a $136 clean horsepower. But yeah, that's pretty much dyno tuning 101. So guys, I've moved one of my cameras here to show you guys. As you can see, my before and after, my horsepower is right there. You can see the red is my before, and you can go ahead and see my after there. And you can see here my before and my after. As you can see here, my horsepower curve is nice and linear where you want it to be. My torque curve is nice and linear where you want it to be. So what I'm going to do to kind of clean this up for you guys, I'm going to remove our before run. There we go. I'm going to highlight that for you guys. So as you can see, it's what I said. It's perfectly linear all the way to red line, which on this bike happens to be 14.2-ish. So 14.250. That's where red lines, and you can see it stop right there. That backwards is just the bike coming down, and I have my engine brake on, so it's braking the bike down to stop. So yeah, the graph pretty much goes up here and stops there. Most graphs you won't see the return because they don't automatically record when the drum is spinning. I do it because it helps speed up my tune, and the faster I can get my tune done, faster I can get the bike out of the RPM range, the safer it is for the motor and the safer for the bike. I mean, there's no point beating up a machine when the machine is running perfectly and going crazy. So at the end of the tune, what I did is I went ahead and I played with the numbers a little bit, up and down 5% across the whole board, just to see if the bike responded a different way. This particular bike, it was happy with what it had. I did another 5 pulls. ish, 3 pulls while I was making minor changes, but the horsepower stayed at 136. So I know this bike, that's where it's gonna sit. I can't squeeze more out of it without risking it running lean and other nonsense happening. Now, there's other little kind of targets that I'm doing tuning wise at different throttle percentages. I'm targeting different air fuels a little bit. I did change my air fuels while the camera was running quick so that I could target different air fuels. I did ramp my air fuel like I said I was gonna. You know, as much as I want to show you guys and how the dyno works and make you understand it, my target air fuels and my ramping system and that stuff that I've kind of perfected over the years, and you know, kind of tricks of the trade. So I won't be giving that stuff out. Just we don't want any of the local hopefuls and wishers copying all my how-to and learning everything I know, but this pretty much gives you the how-to dyno tune, so you guys get a full understanding of what it is and how it works. Again, guys, if you have a question, post it, subscribe, follow us, shoot us a question, we will answer. If you're unsure of something you saw, if you're having your bike tuned and you want to know what to do to prepare for the dyno, anything, just shoot us a question, ask us, and we'll walk you through what to do. If you have a question about a graph, show us your graph, man. I'll walk you through the good and the bad and the ugly, and we'll get you going. So guys, that's a wrap for our Dyno Tuning 101 video. This is the basics to get you started. As different bikes come in, newer bikes, bikes with fly-by-wire throttle, bikes that we're gonna start getting more into the ECUs, and we're gonna show you guys how to do ECU work and everything. We're gonna really get you guys well educated within the motorcycle game. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe below. Guys, subscribe so that we know you're watching, so that we know we're helping, so that we know what you guys want to see. We'll keep them coming, man. All right, man, be safe. We'll see you guys.
Cycle, bro.
And I'm just gonna be like, hey guys, say what's up to Ronaldo. He's one of our shop locals. He sucks big dick, you know what I mean? All right, everybody. Which one am I supposed to look into?